has been a forensic linguist in Puerto Rico, of all places, who has done a detailed examination of the two segments of Jesse Misskelly's statement that were recorded. It is clearly shown how Jesse never initiated any information that was not suggested to him first, even in these two brief segments that were recorded, first by the police. So they said, well, could it have been a little bit later, Jesse? Maybe afternoon. They finally got him to say, well, yes, it was after dark. He said that the boys were stabbed while they were still in their clothes. Police knew that the clothing had also been retrieved. It was in the creek, too, held down in the muck by sticks, and there were no stab holes in it. Said that they were sodomized, but the medical examiner found no evidence of that. And he said, when asked were the boys tied up, he said they were tied with brown rope. Well, if there's one thing that was very, very clear about this case, it was that, and the police knew, they were tied with their own shoelaces, black shoelaces, white shoelaces, no rope, nothing brown. So, nevertheless, the prosecutors had him charged and went out the night that he made this statement and arrested Damien and Jason. Jesse was put on trial first because he had confessed. Damien, they called it, he also immediately the next day said that was all untrue. He had just started saying stuff to get out of there. But nonetheless, he was going to be tried alone because Damien and Jason never confessed. They always maintained they were innocent. And the Sixth Amendment of our Constitution requires that you have the right to confront your accuser. So they could not be tried together. So Jesse was put on trial first in February 1994, and here Circuit Judge David Burnett presided. He would preside over the second trial of Damien and Jason as well, and he has now just been elected to the Arkansas legislature from his district. Okay. Jesse was convicted, as the Arkansas Supreme Court said in reviewing his trial, based solely on his confession. They played those two segments of the recorded, or parts of that recorded statement he made, and based on that, that was good enough for the jury. The prosecutors asked for them to sentence him to death, but he was sentenced instead to life in prison plus 40 years. The prosecutors really wanted Jesse to testify against Damien and Jason because they had almost nothing to present as evidence against them. They knew that they had gotten by with Jesse's confession, but without that, they were really in trouble. And they acknowledged that. They told the parents of the victims at one point, we have about a 50-50 chance was the best that they would give, and yet they were going to go and ask for the death penalty on that. They wanted Jesse to come in and repeat his allegation, which he had recanted, that he had seen them involved in the killing. And they offered to give him a reduced sentence. He would probably be out of prison by now if he had accepted the offer. But he did not. He refused to testify against them. They then approached Jason, who was 16 years old at this time, and facing a sentence of death if the jury found him guilty. And they went to him and said that they would ask for a term of years instead of the death sentence for him if he would say that Damien had done it. And Jason said, no, I won't do that. When they then came back a second time and offered him an even sweeter deal. The first one was a term of 40 years, which he would certainly be out by now if he had accepted. Nobody could remember to tell me what the second offer was, but he angrily refused that and told them to get out of there, that his mother had raised him better than that. I personally think that he's one of the true heroes of this story. That left the prosecutors, Brent Davis and John Fogelman, with no confessions from Damien and Jason, no witnesses to the murder, no murder weapon, and no apparent motive. These three guys that they had arrested appeared to not even have known the victims. Then, as he later told me, Prosecutor Fogelman got an idea. I think he said it was an inspiration. Jason, all three of the defendants lived in trailer parks. All of them within no closer than 4 miles to where the bodies were found. Behind the park where Jason lived, there was a kind of a little lake, and Fogelman had divers, state police divers, go into the lake, and within minutes, what do you know? A diver comes up with a knife, which Fogelman would later claim was the knife used in the castration of Christopher Byers. When I asked by then Judge Fogelman about that plan, I said, well, did you ever worry that someone might have planted that knife or anything like that? And he said, oh, no, we kept this entirely secret. Only the state police and I knew what we were doing. And then I went to the West Memphis Evening Times, which has since burned down, but at the time I was able to go through their microfiche of their old newspapers, and this photo was on the front page. So it was just John Fogelman and the state police divers and a photographer for the newspaper out there. And it might have had a little prejudicial effect as well. Anyway, they used that knife and the testimony of that young man who had been in jail while awaiting trial with Jason, and that was all they had against Jason. That boy, Christopher Morgan, Mike. Anyway, he said that he was in there, and one day they brought Jason in, and all of a sudden Jason just started blurting out how he'd killed the boys, and I think he testified that he'd swallowed the testicles, and here was Jason, who would not even accept an offer from the prosecutors to get out from under a possible death penalty, supposedly was going to be making that confession to this guy who was on a string of charges in jail with him. They got more creative with Damien. Fogelman reminded the jurors right off the bat that the murders occurred on the night of the full moon, and that kind of set the stage for one of their biggest problems, which was that that whole issue of motive. Why would these boys have done this? And they were very worried that the jury might be wondering about that as they sat there listening. So told them that it was on the night of the full moon, and then he elicited testimony that Damien had been seen around wearing black from head to toe, all black, and then he introduced evidence that he read